All right. So part of the reason I'm so adamant in my stance about Breath of the Wild, not just as a game in particular, but particularly with you, is that I see the same mechanism at play that I've seen at play with you in other games, and it's not all that's at play.
Well, then I have to ask, what is that mechanism that you see? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, hold on. Let me get that. I'll get to that in a second. You have the initial hesitation that, like I said, like I voiced earlier, that I used to share with you of I don't like a lot of the things that Zelda is trying to be, and it's not the core Zelda experience that I'm looking for.
That's fine. I accepted that more than you realize.
Yeah,
I
used to be of
it
that
feels very
stance.
therapeutic because like I don't hold Zelda to the fire that it has to be that identity. Like
Yeah.
I'm not grabbing my fucking pitchforks
Excellent.
and getting my torches because it has
I
to
used
be
to
that
the
way.
pitchfork and the torch kind of guy. I was like, no, this is not Zelda game.
I was more apathetic towards it. I was just like, okay, I'll let people have Breath of the Wild because I'm not that big of an open world gamer guy.
I was not at all apathetic. It was like Kingdom Hearts to me. Kingdom Hearts and Breath of the Wild are in the same tier of games where I was initially very hesitant and very against them, and I regret every bit of it. I'm like, wow, it was really dumb for me to not be into Kingdom Hearts at the time that it was really popular.
Especially if you're into both Final Fantasy and Disney.
I'm not really into Disney as much as I'm into Final Fantasy, but like I've watched people play Kingdom Hearts, and I've kind of played it myself, and in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I actually kind of really enjoy this game a lot because it's an action RPG, and it's all sorts of things that I love, and like I kind of don't mind the Disney because the initial thing for me with Kingdom Hearts was I didn't like the Disney aesthetic. It wasn't that I didn't like Disney. I didn't like Disney mixed with Final Fantasy.
So we're establishing that
metaphorically, like with Breath of the Wild, I liked Zelda.
We're establishing that you metaphorically wanted to burn those two franchises to the ground originally as your thought process, but then came around to it and you're like, this is a dumb idea.
As a conglomerate, not individually. I like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, okay.
I like Disney.
Right.
But I didn't like the idea of Final Fantasy and Disney
to compare
together.
it to my Breath of the Wild hate, I keep wanting to say I dislike it, I hate it, I am not a fan of it. Like we both had that same tilt to our opinion that,
and it wasn't that like the first time I saw or picked up Kingdom Hearts that all of a sudden I was in love with it. That was absolutely not the case. It was a gradual thing. It was like the more I saw my friends play it, and the more I was like, yeah, if that's what you want to play, dude, I'll sit here and I'll watch you. And I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, shit. I actually kind of dig this as an RPG.
You know what?
I actually kind of dig this as an action game. Oh, shit. And then I found all these other reasons that I wasn't looking at from the beginning because I have this locked in one perspective. I don't like this because of one reason. And once I wasn't thinking about that and I just let it go and I was just kind of casually enjoying the game, I was like, oh, there's all these other reasons that I actually really enjoy the game. And the same shit happened to me with Breath of the Wild. So once I actually picked up the game and I started playing it, I'm like, oh, there's all these other reasons that this actually is a Zelda game to me. This actually is
two major differences. I was never locked in to being hated towards it because I was very apathetic.
You bought it.
And two, I have a lot of reasons, not one singular reason. I have like a fucking laundry list of reasons why Breath of the Wild
I have also
gets on my goddamn nerves.
Yeah,
like just
and
like
your list
oh
of
my god.
So far matches my list of reasons.
And apparently, if the completionist reasons that we just watched.
To this day, Breath of the Wild still bugs me in those regards. Like that hasn't gone away. These are legitimate complaints that you share basically with the rest of the community. So you're not wrong about these things. But once I started playing the game and I got used to the game, I was able to interact, and this leads into the second thing. So that you have the initial hesitation that I used to share, and I no longer share. And then you have this continuous hesitation, which is you keep picking up the game, and the game doesn't treat you right, and so you're like, man, it feels like this game really.
Maybe
isn't
this
for me.
game don't treat your mind at all. Baby.
This game just really feels like it's not for me, and I can't get behind it. And that's the part that I say. I see you for years now share with all the even games you love is that you have actually so many fucking games now like Sekiro. Take for Sekiro. The last time I saw you, every time I've watched you boot up Sekiro, you rave about it, and like I see all the reasons you rave about it, and you're not wrong in any respects about that game. But every time I've watched you boot up that game whoops your ass, and then you're like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not feeling it right now.
Right, so, but I say something different than I do with Breath of the Wild. It's like I'm not feeling it right now. With Breath of the Wild, it goes
what I'm saying
farther.
Is that the mechanism is the same. Is that across all these games, whether you like them or not, the barrier to entry for you to getting to enjoy the game is the fact that you just not acknowledging the fact that you're not a kid anymore and you can't absorb information like a fucking sponge the second that you touch it, because that's a kid thing. And as kids growing up as gamers, we had that. And like I have to understand that even playing games that I know and I love, like Mega Man, I have to like, I'm like, shit. I'm like, fuck. I have to sit down and learn how to platform again. I have to sit down and learn how to do Mega Man patterns again and beat bosses again. And once I acknowledged it, I was like, oh shit, okay. Then I was able to tackle Mega Man 11.
It's actually interesting you bring up Sekiro, because I have a weirdly nuanced perspective about Sekiro that's tied to my life situation. Because, like, I think I tell what you said that I do to myself, that I'm so excited. Like, yeah, I love Sekiro because it's one of the only games that has that instant feel-good game feel.
But bro, it's actually not just Sekiro. You have a lot. You have that feel.
Well, I
have
to finish the thought on Sekiro specifically.
Yeah, go for
like,
it.
because I can get over it with like Hades and other games that I like. Even Doom, where Doom kicks my fucking ass.
Hades is another really good example.
Doom kicks my ass on easy, and I still fucking.
Doom's another really good example of a game
shit.
that I watched whoop your ass, and you're just like, but you're willing to put up with it.
And so the reason Sekiro holds an asterisk in my life is I bought it literally the month that I was getting evicted from my mom's house, and so it put this stain on me. So I had to keep telling myself, I think that I had to keep telling myself over years that of course this game is awesome, because my life situation said, oh, by the way, you ain't gonna play this game. You just downloaded it, but you gotta go find a house. You gotta go find a way to support that house. You gotta go pay for bills, which means you're probably gonna have 2 jobs. You ain't fucking playing this game that you say you love to yourself because you got too much life situation to like learn and enjoy. But it has such a good instant game feel. Like I think Game Maker's Toolkit mentions that at some point. Like it just has game feel. That's why I know it feels so like. And even if you say other games have Sekiro takes it to a different degree.
Look at Hades. Hades was a game that I hyped up to you, and like Michael hyped up to you, other people hyped up to you. And
a lot of you guys.
I'm gonna buy this game, and you had a lot of initial like really hard inertia to build up into the game. You was like, man, this game's just whooping my ass, and then like we kind of had like ease you into it and be like, hey, you just gotta understand this is the way the game works. And you got to get used to it. And once you start to get used to it and understanding how the boons work, you're like, yeah. Now I'm starting to fucking have fun. Now
I have fun,
and
but
you still get your ass whooped.
Yeah, my ass is still like very much handily.
I still get
to
my ass
silver
whooped in
platter.
Hades. Don't get me like I've beaten Hades multiple times. That doesn't mean I don't get my ass whooped. I get my ass whooped all the fucking time in Hades, all the fucking time in Hades. But like, you start enjoying it a little bit more. I watched, dude. You hyped Bloodborne up to me for the entire time from its announcement all the way up until its release, and then I watched you get it at release. I watched that game whoop your fucking ass for months and months, and to the point where you were about to quit everything. You were like legitimately kind of depressed about it. You were legitimately kind of depressed about it. I'm like, damn, dude, this game is whooping your ass.
Right, because it's one of
and you overcame it anyway.
Because it's the only instance of a game that took me to that level of like, I don't know if I understand or if this game is for me, but because I liked the aesthetic was so good to me that the whole Victorian era werewolves and monsters turned into Eldritchian horror as the game progresses, like that. And I don't even think that concept has even been done that as well as Bloodborne did it in games since then. All of it coming together in this perfect formation. That's why I forced myself to push through that game so much. I can't take all the credit for it because I had to ask for help online.
I know.
Like I had to ask for people to push me through the game to get over some of those humps.
Parts of Breath of the Wild, dude, I had to look up guides. I was like, well, I have no idea.
Does Breath of the Wild have you ask for actual people to beat the boss for you?
No.
Because that's what I had to do in Bloodborne.
You cannot do that.
I had to ask people to beat Gascoigne for me, so I could get beyond Gascoigne.
I will say in caveat to that though, Breath of the Wild's bosses are not so hard that you require that in any capacity.
Okay.
They're really not.
And it doesn't seem like the bosses are necessarily the focal point of Breath of the Wild. They're more just like a nice end goal with like, it's more of a mechanized chest where like you get a reward for beating them.
You get a reward, and they do help with the end boss at the end because like if you beat all 4 bosses, it reduces.
Okay, now you're talking about the Divine Beasts, though, right? Because I'm talking about like
those are technically the
Lionels.
Oh no, those are like. In all honesty, sometimes the Lionels are harder than the
That's kind of what I'm talking. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So what is bosses? So in Elden Ring, they differentiate the bosses between
like life bar, no life bar, cutscene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like they have degrees to their bosses, and every From Software game has that because you have mid-stage bosses that are the bigger, chunkier enemies that have.
Yeah. No. In Breath of the Wild, you have your enemies, you have your. I guess I'll call them boss enemies. So your Hinoxes, your
Stone Taluses.
enemies that. And then your Lionels. Lionels don't show, as far as if I recall correctly, do not show up with a life bar the way like a Hinox or a fucking Stone Talus does. But they're so difficult they might as well be considered a fucking life bar enemy. Just hands down. They're probably the most difficult enemy in the game, including some of the actual Ganon bosses. And then there's the Ganon bosses, which are the Divine Beast bosses.
Right.
And then plus
that's the traditional
Castle.
That's a traditional Mega Man Zelda lock you in a room. Boss
that's
fight
your boss
kind of
boss. That's your boss. So there's like 5 real bosses in the game, 6 plus the DLC.
It took a page out of Majora's Mask, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of how it is, yeah. And now that you mention it, I like the way, yeah. So that's kind of how that goes. And then there's boss enemies, and the boss enemies in some instances are harder than the actual bosses. So what I'm saying is that like I watched that game whoop your ass for so long, and then you still overcame it. Breath of the Wild will not require you to put that amount of time invested into the game before you start to feel like you did when you started to master Bloodborne.
Unfortunately,
it won't even be a tenth of the time. I promise you.
Unfortunately, that I can't get over the fact that
because
factually and evidentially hasn't been true. Because over the 5 years I've owned Breath of the Wild, I've tried to boot it up in every living situation that I've been in.
Legitimate, look, I haven't been with you every second of your waking life, obviously.
Right.
I'm not God. But, like, have you booted up legitimately and given it a shot the same amount of times that you have Bloodborne?
If we're talking about the same amount of time for the discouragement...
Not the same amount of time that you've owned it, but the same amount of time that you've actively played it.
The 5 months. So the Bloodborne 5 months that got me to being depressed and eventually overcoming it.
Yeah.
And the time... I would say it's probably about a similar amount of hours because I've actively... Because there was that whole time...
Dude, okay,
we deleted my whole
Zelda
file.
games give you this difficulty?
Huh?
Are normal Zelda games this difficult?
I literally am at the final
like
boss.
Twilight Princess Skyward... No,
I'm literally at the final boss. I'm literally at Turtle Rock in the final boss fight in Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
So, like, traditional Zelda games that are based on that traditional formula do not give me nearly as much of it.
Have you played the original Zelda?
Okay. Now you're tapping on something that I've never mentioned.
Because I played the original Zelda and I hated every second of it.
Yeah, you're tapping on something that I've never
and the original Zelda is the inspiration for Breath of the Wild.
Because this ties to my life. Because, okay, so I'm 30 years old, which means at 4 years old, I was introduced to video gaming just on a whim with my family. And my sister reminded this of me as I was at my birthday dinner, my sister Isabel, that Dad was like, "Oh, you remember video games as your first memory?" And she goes, "Well, it's kind of a formative memory sort of thing because I was hanging out with my great grandma, my mom's grandmother, Gladys, and so she goes, "Would you like?" She didn't know what to do with us because I was 4, my brother was 2, and my sister was 1, and so we're all hanging out at my grandma's house as babies, as fucking toddlers, babies, the whole thing, and she pulls out an NES with the gold Legend of Zelda cartridge. And a Super Mario Brothers it's the pack-in Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt cartridge and the gold Legend of Zelda cartridge.
I remember both of those.
That's why I remember this because at 4 years old, it was so profound to see these things. I had to remember it. And being with my grandma at the time.
But did you like it?
That's the thing. My parents tell me from this point on, I don't have that memory of playing the game. I have the memory of existing and being around it and seeing the console and putting the controller in my hand. My parents tell me that I preferred Super Mario Brothers, the original Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, more than I preferred Legend of Zelda. But if you fast forward 2 more years to getting... I got a Game Boy for my 6th birthday, which Link's Awakening. Yeah. I played the shit out of Link's Awakening.
Okay, but see, the difference is that I can tell you, like, and I'm sure you've already probably made this cognition yourself, is that Link's
very
Awakening
different game.
plays more like a Link to the Past
Yes.
than it does to the original.
Because I didn't know that when I got it. I didn't know
Yeah.
that there was a Link to the Past before Link's Awakening came out, or maybe a Link's Awakening came before a Link to the Past. I'm not entirely sure
I'm
the
also
chronology.
not entirely sure, but I think a Link to the Past came.
Because they're all part of the same timeline. They're definitely all part of the same
Yeah.
timeline.
They're all
Link
part of
to the Past,
Defeat
Link's
timeline.
Awakening, something like that.
They're all part of the Defeat timeline.
Whatever it is, whatever it's named, they're all part of
Yeah.
that timeline. And I just know that something about, and then to bring it back to the original Legend of Zelda, I've tried to go back to the original Legend of Zelda thanks to, because I'm such a Zelda fan, we talked about Majora's Mask. So the original release of Majora's Mask involved getting the gold as an honor to the original Legend of Zelda. It's one of the, like Ocarina of Time, the first release of Ocarina of Time was a gold cartridge, where the first edition
Yes.
release of Majora's
My
Mask.
cousin, fun fact, had the gold card
Yes,
of Majora's Mask.
it's holographic.
Of Majora's Mask. Yes,
It has a holographic
That
display
shit was
on it.
dope.
It's one of the...
He lent me that for like 3 or 4 years. I had that game and I played
Yeah,
the shit out of it. every
GoldenEye
single
was
day.
gold and Ocarina of Time was gold, but Majora's Mask had a holographic
Yes,
like
that shit was
picture
dope.
on it, and I was
Yes.
like, why is this one get so special of a treatment? So then to honor all these special golden era releases, when Wind Waker came out as a special Wind Waker bonus, you could get the Legend of Zelda bonus disc, which comes with Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Adventure of Link, Ocarina of Time Master Quest, and Majora's Mask. Granted, I was more excited for the last two beforehand, but of course, I'm a gamer, I'm curious, I'm going to try out Legend of Zelda 1 and Adventure of Link. And fucking exactly what you just said. I don't know if I hated every second of it, but it was so confusing. And then, an added kicker on top of this, I triggered a memory playing it on the GameCube, where I realized I made Legend of Zelda 1 harder for myself when I was a younger kid.
Because I
typed in the word Zelda as my name. Not knowing that if you type in Zelda as your name, you get the alternate quest. So I made the game harder on myself before I played it.
There's an which
Okay,
game?
if you're not aware of this, Legend of Zelda 1, if you type in your name as Zelda, Link's icon will hold his sword up, and that's your indicator that you're on the second quest. It's kind of like the
the new game plus.
It's the original Master Quest of Legend of Zelda.
I was not aware of this.
Yes.
What the fuck?
So because I'm such a fan, when I played it at like 10 or 11 years old, because you can get like
Dude, do you know how many people mistook the name of Link for Zelda and would put that shit in just willy-nilly? Myself included, at that age. At that age, I did not know the distinction between Zelda and Link. It wasn't until
a Nintendo
Link
Power.
to the Past / Ocarina of Time that I was like, oh, Link and Zelda are two different people.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nintendo didn't. They're so Japanese and insular with their stuff. They didn't tell people initially that they had the second quest in the game. So you play through the quest. If you put in any regular name, Link is just like looks all stern or whatever. And it was a hidden secret bonus for people that were like super
So you
into the
started
game.
on hard mode.
Yes, I started on hard mode. So I made the game even worse for me to make me hate Legend of Zelda 1 to begin with. And I never knew, and I never corrected it. I never like tried to play it like the original mode. And like, I get that there's something novel about like everything. You go around looking for bushes and what you can like, the sword breaks and hearing the bomb crack noise and stuff like
so
that.
Like, to retrace it back to my original point. All right, so like I remember watching you play against Michael in Strive.
Ah, yes.
Right. Okay, so like
This is a fair comparison.
Check it. Strive is a game you love. Leo is a character that you love to play.
But Angie is a character I more love to play.
Bridges
He came
is a character
back.
that he loves to play, right?
Yes. Both came back from X.
So between the two of you, who has more playtime in Strive?
Obviously he does.
Right, obviously he does. Who has more playtime on their favorite character?
Obviously he does as well.
Across all games.
Yeah.
He does?
Yeah.
Right. So he knows how to manage his character. Like, this is what I'm saying, is that, like, sometimes you and this is an ADHD problem as well as, like, an American culture and just a male problem in general, is that, particularly when you're intelligent, is that you're really good at defeating yourself before you've given yourself a chance to give yourself a chance. And, like, I watch you play Strive against Michael, and Michael's whooping your ass, and you get and you're so much better than you used to be. But after a certain amount of ass whoopings, you still get defeated.
Of course.
And it happens to literally everybody. If you listen to Jordan Peterson, he'll tell you if you play with a
If
child,
you listen to Joe
and
Rogan,
you don't let him win at least some of the time, he'll stop playing with you.
If you listen to Joe Rogan talk about fight commentators, it doesn't matter how much training these guys have. You get punched in the face enough times, you're going to feel a little A little
start feeling some type of way, and you should feel some type of way. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, and I've been telling you this for months now, is that you feel some type of way, and like you don't, and I don't think you see now, and I think you do now acknowledge, but I don't think you acknowledge it as strongly as you should, perhaps, is that there is a correlation between the amount of time and not only the amount of time that you put into a game to be good at it, but the gaps between the time you play a game and then we have the term you get rusty at a game. Anybody will be rusty no matter how good you are at a game. And then so you play a game like Breath of the Wild. I remember when you were first booting up Bloodborne, I watched you play Bloodborne, and then you'd get your ass whooped, and then you'd stop playing it, and then you'd be like, hey, you want to play something else? We'd play something else. And I watched you do that for months. And then you progressively did not get better at
ADD problem, because I just
you also own so many games. It's really easy for you to be like, hey, let's just play something else. Because I own all these other games. It's really easy for me to not acknowledge the fact that I'm really just sucking at this game right now. But it's not that you suck at the game. It's just, it kind of is. You suck at the game right now, but if you would just put the time into it because you enjoy the game and you're passionate about it, particularly fighting games anyway, you would find you're not actually bad at the game. Because, like, there was a huge jump when we used to play fighters, and that, like, whenever we would play fighters casually, because I have a natural instinct for fighting games, I have really naturally good positioning and good, once I know what a move does, I have really good spacing, and I just whoop people's asses by fighting games instinctually. But I am nothing against a fucking trained fighter. Somebody that sits down and puts their fucking ass in training mode and just sits down and fight. And there was a night and day difference between when you and I used to play, and then you played with Michael, and Michael sat you down, and he's like, okay, this is how we play the game.
Yeah.
And then you learned how to play the game. And just you learning how to block single-handedly enabled you to whoop my fucking ass.
My secret to that, you have any idea how many years it took me to learn how to block? I've had to go through Mortal Kombat, BlazBlue, on many different games.
How many years?
Gear,
and like how many years?
Persona
I've also
4 Arena.
I've been playing. I guarantee you, I've been playing fighting games just as long as you, and I still haven't learned how to block. And that one thing that you sat down and you're like, all right, I'm gonna learn how to do this because it's required for me to get better and to play with my friend. You sat down, you learned how to do it. And then once you learned how to do it, you're leagues above me. I couldn't touch you. You just fucking whoop my ass. It didn't matter which team I picked. And like I would adapt and get a little bit better as I learned how to play the game again. But I still couldn't beat you. And like even now, if we were to boot up fighters right now, I might be able to contest you and I might be able to win some matches and stuff like that. But I still have to deal with the fact that I never sat down and learned how to block. Therefore, blocking will never be instinctual to me. I have to like make a conscious decision to block. And that's a lot of time in a fucking fighting game. It's a lot of time to make a conscious decision about anything. And then so, I see that same mechanism where like I watch you play Michael, and you're playing him, and you know your moves and you're executing them, but because you haven't sat down and played Strive for, say, like I was just thinking about this the other day. You and me could sit down and play Strive, and we could play Strive for an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day for 2 weeks, and I guarantee you at the end of that 2 weeks you could play with Michael on like a competitive level. Maybe you wouldn't win because he plays more often than you.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't feel stomped, like ever. You would feel like, oh, that was a fun match. You'd feel on his level. I guarantee you, we could put 2 hours of deliberate, dedicated practice in like making a conscious decision to get better at the game, not caring about who wins.
We'll make this fully philosophical because I can't even get to 2 hours. We just recorded. Right now we're at 23 for this conversation, but 23 minutes. But I didn't even get to an hour on Breath of the Wild, where the first session we did together, you and I did together, rebooting and deleting my file was 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's fine. But you were also streaming a lot back then. Have you been streaming a lot right now? So it's something you got to build back up to, just like you were doing back then. It's the same concept at play. Literally, it's actually kind of funny that you bring that up, because the same mechanism is at play also in your life, in my opinion. The way I see it.
It's very possible.
You haven't streamed, you haven't recorded, you haven't done anything like this in a while. So
I don't explain my life situation on the internet.
And not just build back up to it, but we got to learn how to time it correctly. So if we set aside a certain amount of time, we're like, hey, from 7:30 or from 8 o'clock to 9:30, I want to record, I want to stream. If you tell me that and we set aside that time, I can either be a part of it with you, or I can set aside my time and not interrupt you, and you can get that time.
Yeah, I do need to. The life situation thing I'm going to bring back up because I haven't been thinking about it because I've been trying to survive. And that's my shit. That's not just to put on the internet.
Right.
That's my shit to handle, but it's been causing What I can talk about has been causing mental distraction to not want to do these things. It's been hard to initiate games because I'm in survival
if we get you
mode.
into the habit of doing these things, there will be no mental energy.
Yeah, I am at a point where survival is not as immediate as it was 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So hopefully I can make that a month. Hopefully I can make that 2 months. Hopefully I can make that year.
Yeah.
And then start fitting that in. Because time management is something I definitely need to figure out. Because like to bring it also back to Guilty Gear, even though I love Leo, I played enough Angie and I'm not a training mode guy. I need to start getting into training mode. I'll fully admit that. Yeah. I need to get into training mode. But I was playing enough arcade mode that I was starting to see some cool things that I could do with Angie. And since it all comes back to Strive, happens to be bringing back these characters that we loved from XX Accent Core, like I might put the time into Angie because of like it's that enjoyment factor. There's something to Leo that doesn't hook me like in Strive as much as it did in Exert. But there's something about Angie that does.
When it comes to getting better at fighting games and anything in general, literally in life, humility is the best policy, and the core of humility is honesty. So if you can look at like, because there's like, for example, Storm 4. There's characters in Storm 4 that I like to play aesthetically. Like, I like it because they're cool. I like them because they're like my favorite character or something like that, but they're not necessarily the best character for me to play. And there's other characters that I know that are not aesthetically cool or like not the character that I want to play. But if I want to win, if I want to get better, and if I want to compete, that's the character I have to play. Neji is a perfect example of that. Neji is not the character that I want to play most of the time, but if the computer's whooping my ass and I need to whoop some ass, Neji's the character I'm playing. If a human being is whooping my ass and I'm in a tournament and I really, really want to play like Haku or fucking Sasori because they're my favorite characters, like, but I need to win this tournament, I'm fucking playing Neji. Neji is who I'm playing. And so, like, because I kind of got the impression watching you play Leo versus Bridget that either Bridget whoops Leo's ass as a character, B, Leo can compete with Bridget and you're just not competent and you're not comfortable enough with Leo yet to be on that competitive level comparative to Michael.
Yeah. And the reason I'm not competent on it is he's slightly different.
Leo's not actually your character, but you really, really like him, and you need to transition. Not transition. You can still learn and get good at Leo. You can still absolutely do that if you want to do. But there's a character that matches you better, and you just need to figure out who that is. Maybe it's Angie.
That competitive thing comes from my supposed using him as a main in Exerd, because in Exerd, the Exerd systems, Ramlethal and Elfelt existing in that game, meant that he had different tools available to him, and the Exerd systems change it just enough that his timing is just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit harder to understand in Strive than it is in Exerd. For whatever reason. Couldn't tell you what it is. Even if Michael will tell me on Discord all the time, dude, he's like, I think Leo's really good right now. He's like, I think Leo is like top tier in Strive.
He probably knows what he's talking about then.
Yeah.
But I also think he plays Bridget for a reason. Not just because it's his favorite character.
Well, but it's hard to say how much data we actually get. Bridget came out like last week to Strive.
Yeah, but he plays Bridget for a reason, and I watch him play Bridget, and I watch you play Leo. And it's not just you watching playing Leo, because I've watched other Strive content just on my own, just kind of like chilling, just like checking out other characters, specifically Angie, because I actually like I've watched you play Angie, and I've watched other people play Angie, and I kind of like the way Angie plays. But now that Bridget was released, I've watched him play Bridget, and I've watched Bridget gameplay, and I'm like, wow, Bridget's kind of fucking ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, I see the hitboxes, and I see the speed of the animations, and like the frame data, and I'm like, ooh, Bridget's a brutal character. But if he likes Bridget, look, he can go one of two ways, and I don't know your friend Michael personally, so this could sound like I'm dissing on his character, but I'm not. I'm just saying it's a possibility. He could either be hyping Bridget up, or not hyping Leo up because he genuinely believes Leo's good, and if he does, he probably knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, he could be hyping Leo up to you because he knows Bridget beats Leo, and he wants you to keep.
He wants you to keep playing
Leo.
That would only make sense that would
And you know
only
your
make
friend better
sense.
than I do. So.
That statement only makes sense and has nothing to do with whether I know him. It's just, unfortunately, the timeline doesn't match up. He was telling me that Leo was good before Bridget was even a thought as a DLC character.
Then he probably knows what he's talking about. You probably take his word for it. Leo's probably a good character, and if you want to invest time in Leo, you should invest time in Leo. But that Anji though, and them counters, if you get good with that shit, Anji feels like a Strive version of Hit.
You're not wrong, because let me get one thing out of the gate.
Like short, quick movements.
If Michael is playing Bridget because he played him in Accent Core, the reason I'm playing Angie because I played him in Accent Core, he did not have that counter. That counter is not something that Angie had as a tool in XX. And so because he didn't have that as a tool, it really opens up and the butterfly, and like I was noticing all these
butterfly is good, fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
bro.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull that off reliably. It's another thing. I watched you play against Michael, and I'm like, oh, Michael knows his inputs and knows them by reflex. You don't know your inputs or your reflex. You know what your inputs are.
That's the timing.
You know what your inputs are, but
timing.
You haven't played Strive the way he has, where your inputs are literally
That's
reflex.
The time in giving to the game. That's the time window that I'm not giving to the game.
That's the time shit that's irreplaceable. There's no shortcut for that. There's no shortcut for time. Essentially practice spent. So that is one good reason why you should boot up training mode, because you can boot up training mode and you'll be like, hey, I'm going to grind out 50 times of this one move until it's fucking reflex for me. And you can do that. What is it? That Bruce Lee quote? I don't fear the man that's practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times.
That's a quote?
Yes, that is a Bruce Lee
I'm sorry.
quote.
You threw it at me like I knew it, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yes.
I had no fucking idea.
I don't fear the man who's practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. Something along those lines.
Well, all right.
I believe that is the correct quote, but I could be mistaken. Somebody out there will probably know it verbatim, and I'm not that guy, but
that's fine.
I
think the gist is
you get it, right?
Yeah.
It's the person that's practiced the same kick who knows it so well that they can execute perfectly and on reflex and with perfect precision, perfect force, everything. That one kick will demolish you. Versus the one dude who knows, oh, I know all these 1,000 kicks, but it's only practiced them one time and knows them conceptually, but doesn't know them with their body and doesn't know their execution. That person doesn't do shit. That other person, though, that knows that one good roundhouse kick fucking will shatter your ribs.
Probably, yeah.
That other dude.
I'll get there. The distractions in life are why I haven't booted up. I've only been reinvigorated in the Strive world because of the announcement of the Bridget DLC, because it means it gives me a friend to play with, because fighting games are not fighting games if you don't have something to compete with. Like, you can enjoy the story all you want, you can enjoy the aesthetic, you can enjoy the cool character designs, you can enjoy the weapons, all that jazz, but like at the end of the day, a fighting game is a one-on-one fight versus another human being. And so like, if it wasn't for that reinvigoration of Bridget being not only announced as a character, but ready as DLC and available as soon as they announced it, so it brought me back in ways that like I forgot about it, because I do want to, even as you said, stream more, so I want to give more time to other games, but because I'm such a fighting game lover, I'm wrestling with what time do I give these adventure games and these role-playing games and these single-player games and the magic time versus when do I give time to fighting games. It's like it's a time management problem.
Create a schedule according to your interests. So, what are you more interested in? How interested in Breath of the Wild are you versus getting better at Strive or getting better at Fighters or getting better at Kakarot or any other proportion of games?
Kakarot, you're just making me forget all the greatness of
Think
games.
of 5. Think of your top 5 games that you want to play right now, and then proportion them against. So like, you have 7 days of the week. Give yourself 2 days off, 5 days of 1 hour of streaming. Just one. Just start off with 1 hour of streaming. What do you want to do? What is the thing that you
1 hour
most
is a good episode length.
Yeah, what is the thing that you're most interested in playing and getting better at? Either or concurrently. Both.
I'll figure it out. I don't know the answer right now on this recording, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Because I don't know how much I'm into Breath of the Wild. I've been practicing Doom, but
if Breath of the Wild is something that you want to do later, maybe you want to do it with me, or you want me to do it while you watch, or something like that. Figure that out. If Strive is something, or fighting games in general, something you want to get better at, fucking allocate fucking 70% of your fucking streaming time to that. And just getting better, and record your fucking getting better at fucking fighting games. So be like, hey, this is the player that I used to be, and 2, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you can look back and be like, hey, this is the player I am now, and you have it all recorded, your whole journey. It'll add up in your favor. Trust me.
Huh.
Because there will be a lot of old early moments that you can recycle as good, funny content. That'd be like, hey, look, guys, look where I used to be. Look where I used to be. And then you can have the good new content that people like, your favorite fighting game streamers have. Where it's like, hey, we're playing these online matches. We're playing these ranked matches. Look where I am now. You know what I'm saying? Like the contrast.
I do see what you're saying. I don't know why I didn't see it myself when I don't know how to explain this other than just say it. Like, I watched myself make the glorious little jingle theme song that I have to this lovely little channel I'm trying to make. Where, like, I caught myself one day just going through my recordings and, like, happenstance, one of the openings is me, like, workshopping the entire opening because I didn't quite figure it out yet.
Yeah.
And I at least had the emotional thought of like, this is cool. I'm like able to see the progress of me going from me beatboxing the opening jingle to one day eventually, like, I think it was like...
Yeah, you get that retrospective.
Yeah, like it was like Sesh 16 and then like 30 by 33.
You got to look back and go, oh, look how cute I was.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know why that didn't register with me in fighting games because like even when I initially created the In the Ring subcategory of us playing it, it was just all excitement. You can look at the recordings and
it was all hype.
It's all hype, all
The
excitement.
problem with all hype is that if the hype doesn't meet your expectations, you get extremely disheartened and extremely down.
Yeah, and so I had
to
immediately I had to try to re-workshop and get myself okay with whatever the direction was going to go for the fighting game side of the streaming side of the channel, because I knew the fighting game side was different. I knew it is not the same as whatever we bullshit about on other games, because like we can let that go off tangent, but the fighting game seems to specifically have that competitive focus, and because the competitive nature, it's going to bring out
nature of the game.
It's going to bring out different sides of us, and so like I'm still trying to rethink it, but I never thought of recording it and then looking back on it, even though I was doing it with other stuff.
It's like
how did I do it with other stuff, but not think about it for this stuff?
Look at it this way.
It didn't make any sense.
When you and I used to play fighters, and it was like kind of casual, but also at the same time kind of subliminally, so kind of underlyingly, it was like, well, it's a competitive game. So the game naturally puts you in a competitive mindset, so let's see who's going to win. And when
it's BrickedBoyZ versus...
Yeah, and when it's, let's see who's going to win. If one player's dominant,
three people get that reference, it's going to be great.
Yeah. When one player's dominant, the other player feels really, really bad. And again, I hate to reiterate this. This is not me tooting my own horn. It's just me trying to elaborate the point. Really, really instinctually good at fighting games. So, like, if I dominate you in a fighting game, you start to feel really bad about yourself. You start to feel some type of way about yourself. If we change that from being a casual setting to you being like, okay, this is my goal. I'm gonna get better at. We're neither of us care about who wins or loses. We're just trying to get better at the game. Then all of a sudden, the win or loss streaks lose all of their meaning, and neither of us cares anymore because we're just learning. We're learning how to block better. We're learning how to fucking combo better. We're learning how to fucking switch into characters and do a fucking dual hyper combo or whatever the fuck they're called, team fucking combos and shit like that. And then all the fucking shit that used to bring us down or bring you down, bring me down, bring anybody down, that would stop us from playing the game and getting better, loses all of its meaning and it loses all of its power. And then all of a sudden you just like, yeah, we're just fucking getting better at the game. Vast majority of people that get better at the games that they want to get better at it don't do it not because they lack a competitive spirit. They have the competitive spirit. but because they look towards getting better as a higher goal and put it on a higher pedestal than they do winning. Does that make sense?
No, it didn't. I lost you somewhere.
Fair enough. Maybe it's better for a better time. Maybe it's better left for a later time. But essentially, if you move your goal from winning the game to getting better at the game, losing the game never affects you. And so you can't get disheartened. You can't get, because you look at the game.
Okay, well, I was trying to sit here listening to respond, which is not something you should do. I'll fully acknowledge that, but I had something I wanted to say that I didn't think related. But now that you bring it up like that about being disheartened, I to kind of shatter your earlier expectations of like saying like don't feel bad if I just dominate you in the game. The only game I actually can contend and have evidence for that I don't have that for is Fighters, because when I played Michael Fighters, so we're playing Strive, right? Mm-hmm. Like one of those nights, I think you go off to do like a night house or something, and like we're playing Strive for a bit. I'm like, hey, can we just switch to Fighters for a bit? And he's like, oh, let me go see if I have it downloaded. He didn't have it downloaded, but I was like, if it's not downloaded, don't worry about it. He's like, it'll take like 30 seconds, and he fucking downloaded it, and we played it. And so that evidence of whatever you were just talking about, right there, like a stone wall, showed itself, because like I actually put time into Fighters because I own it now on 3 different versions. So I played the PlayStation version. I sometimes play it at the warehouse. I try out characters. I try out moves. I still practice Beerus. I still practice Bardock. Like I'm still putting in whatever little bit of time that I put in them. So that automaticness of both learning to block and automatically knowing my character's moves immediately showed through with Michael, because all he knew how to...
Michael playing still out of Strive, not a whole lot of Fighters.
Yes.
And then he's jumping in and he's like, what am I doing?
Yeah, all he knew was his characters were Android 21, like Yamcha.
Like he knows the characters he likes, but he's played them in so long, and then you're just like,
Yeah, I was just like, boop, 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 boop. I felt like Neo in The Matrix, where I was just like, I'm like watching him, I'm like literally like,
by the way, this move will hit you here.
Is this happening? Like, yeah, and he's like, oh, okay. He's like, and then even Michael admitted on that Discord call that he was like, yeah, I haven't really practiced a lot of Fighters. So like I already have that in my back pocket, that if I'm confident enough at what I've already practiced at, I don't have that dissatisfaction,
what I'm saying.
That worry.
Looping back into Breath of the Wild is that you don't have that with Breath of the Wild, so you have this inertia against you that you keep perceiving, because it always feels like Breath of the Wild is against you, because it is, because you haven't mastered Breath of the Wild yet the way you've sat down and been like, okay, I'm going to learn how to do Fighters, I'm going to learn how to block, I'm going to learn all my characters' moves. And you're like, you haven't sat down and learned, like, okay, I'm going to learn the timing on parries, I'm going to learn how to, what the fucking, the timing on my sword swings are versus spear swings versus two-hand versus all that shit. You haven't sat down and you haven't played the game long enough to learn it, so the game's going to whoop your ass.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by, like, I feel like you're being too hard on both the game and yourself at the same time. You haven't given yourself enough time to be reasonably certain that the game is not for you and you are not for the game. If that makes sense.
What? Yeah.
And it's not the time that you've owned the game and the time that it's the time invested in it. Like,
because I was gonna say, what is reasonable time? What is a reasonable time?
It's not the time that you've owned it and like given it enough shots between month-long spans of not giving it a shot. Because that's what I've brought up to you many times before with other games, like your fighting games, the games that you love, like Elden Ring and shit. It's like, bro, you haven't played a game like this in forever. Of course you're not going to be good at it. You get hard on yourself sometimes. You're like, oh, maybe it's not for me. But it's unreasonable for you to have that assumption, because you haven't put the amount of time into the game to learn how to be good at it to make that judgment about yourself. Does that make sense?
I guess. I don't know. I have a hard time getting over it, because it's the only game I've owned for as long as I've had.
You wouldn't know if you're bad at it because you haven't put enough time into it. It's only after you put so much time into something that it's unreasonable for you to be bad at it that you can be reasonably sure that you're bad at it.
Like, I know this is psychosomatic. I get it. I get my explanation is me telling myself that it's not. I understand whatever is basically the borderline of crazy.
You understand it conceptually,
like,
right?
But like, where I'm going with this is like, it's the only game that holds my own personal video game record of I've owned it for so long yet still have it. Like, any other game that's reached this length, I've either already sold or just accepted I'm never playing again.
Is it really true though? If we booted a PlayStation 4 library, could we not find other games like that?
I don't think not to the degree that I own Breath of the Wild.
Are you sure? because you have like 300 fucking games in your library.
Right, it's close to that number.
And I understand a lot of games you bought like maybe because they were on sale and they were just like it's too good to pass up.
So there's that, and some of them are PlayStation free games.
There's some variants.
So some of those PlayStation free games.
But I also understand in that library there's a lot of games that I know you want to play and that you've wanted to play for the entire time that you owned them and you have not played. And it's not fault against you or anything. It's just a matter of time management, like you said earlier.
Well, that's another factor. That's another variable to the equation. I didn't think is the growing library of games where I was purposefully trying to build up my library. Where I think I even exclaimed to you at one time before I had to sell things.
At some point, you were like, "Yeah, dude. At this point, I'm a collector of games."
Well, I collected the games, and then I even said to you, I reached the end of my collection with the exception of things that are brand new.
Yeah, you were like, and anything that's like not out yet, but I'm done buying games, a backlog of games.
Yeah, it just was a weird coincidence that I happened to have found that, and I didn't consider that as part of the equation because, like, I don't have a system of a priority list of any of that of what I want to play. If I have 300 games on the PlayStation, 150 games on the Switch, like, I don't know what order I want to do any of those
I think this streaming thing is good for you because along the way, the streaming thing will force you to make an order. It'll force you to make a structure for yourself. You have to at some point. You have to decide what you want to play and what you're willing to play and what you think is good for your channel.
Yeah.
You have to find a good ratio behind that and you have to make decisions.
That's another moral thing that's in my head too is like, I don't want to have every game be forced onto the channel.
I
need not even force the games, forced onto the channel, forced onto on the recording. Because like sometimes I want to just enjoy games for myself.
Yeah.
But I have this weird mental barrier with
like if I'm playing a game, why am I not recording it anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
But then at the same time, you've brought up I'm not 100% like there, and like
sometimes you just want to play a game and you want to literally sometimes you want to play a game and you want to fall asleep playing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're being honest with yourself, you're like, yeah, I kind of just want to like zone out, relax, enjoy the last hour and a half of my day left before I fucking fall asleep and have to wake up for work in the morning, and that's perfectly okay.
And right now, I can't separate the two into two camps. I can't make a column A and a column B of games that I just want to play for myself versus games that I feel on my stream. I haven't done it yet.
You can't adhere to it. I pushed it off.
I pushed it off.
You can't adhere to it 100%. You can make that, and you can make that declaration. You can say, okay, this is my goal, and you can slowly fit yourself into that framework over time. You know what I mean? Like baby steps. You're not going to adhere to it 100%, but just because you don't adhere to it 100% from the beginning, don't be like, I just can't pull this off. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's disingenuous to yourself.
Part of me, I tell myself that is because I don't have the time to replay games. I keep trying to get the enjoyment out of like first runs.
I feel you that. I feel that on a spiritual level because like there's a lot of times I'm looking at like I want to make my own channel and stuff like that. And like there's a lot of games I want to play on my channel, but I don't want to replay them myself.
And unfortunately, we've listened to many people when you're doing these kinds of things. Sometimes we're playing 4, 5, 6 times to get the data, not just the footage, the data you need.
Yeah.
To know if the trophies pop, if the different paths are open, like you have to replay it and like, fuck.
That shit's tedious as fuck.
Yeah.
But people do it for the views, and if you want to make this your living, you have to understand that on some level, not all the time forever with the rest of your life, you don't have to slave at it, but sometimes you have to do it for the views. Yeah. You have to do it for what the fans want and what.
I want to do it for myself again. I don't want to do it for the views, but
yeah. But at some point, what you want to do and what the views want to do will coincide. And in those situations, it's probably better, even though you don't want to do it for yourself, you should probably do it for yourself and the views.
But it's also doing it for the integrity. The way I'm looking at it is you're doing it because you can't say things without having tested.
Thing. You keep coming back to the Breath of the Wild thing, and a part of it is an integrity thing. It's like, no, I'm dedicated to the Zelda series. I'm dedicated as a fan. And like, I'm going to keep giving this a shot because there's something here.
Is that an unfortunate curse, though?
Kinda, yeah. Look, you're not the only person. Like, if you look up Breath of the Wild review videos, you will find you are not the only one that tried to get into the game and couldn't.
I guess I have never looked into that.
Yeah, you're not the only one. You're in the minority by far.
Yeah, that's why I've never voiced my opinion because I knew from the get-go
you're not the only one.
In the minority with the whole Breath of the Wild bringing me down thing.
Yeah, you're by far in the minority, but you're not the only one. You're not alone.
I'm in the minority, but I'm also in the subcategory of the minority that does not say it's a bad game. I acknowledge that it deserves all the accolades and all the brilliance and all the praise that the game gets. How much it meshes it with my vibe, that's what I've been trying to figure out for 5 years. And whether or not I've done that with other games, because I haven't done that with some PlayStation games. Okay, so there's an unfortunate disconnect between what games I purchase as like an archival reason, like some of the fighting games I purchase.
That you're just like, I want to have this.
Yes, this just needs to be in my collection. Versus the games that like, oh, this is a cool brand new PlayStation game. And if I look back at my collection, a lot of the games I purchased on the PlayStation that fit that mold are within the same time frame, within the same, because Doom 2016 is kind of that initial. If you remember, I had that opinion that all of current gaming was kind of shit. I was like, kind of like ready for another crash.
Yeah,
I was like believing that like gaming was like being all these gray brown shooters with no choices, and the other form of gaming was like
kind of bland and generic.
And then Doom 2016 hits the fucking marketplace, and I'm like, oh, there's games out there, like actual video games out there, and it reinvigorated. So I started finally looking at the PlayStation library, and coincidentally enough, developers were starting to make games again, and not just bullshit, and not just like walking simulators that they got back touring, got current clones with that.
The age of clones, really, to be honest with you.
And it's kind of ironic because now I'm clamoring for clones, like I'm clamoring for clones of Smash Brothers.
Clones of certain games, though.
Yeah.
Certain good, proven formulas.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that all coincides with each other. Is I do think, like, even though I've played God of War and I really like God of War, and I've given Sekiro a little bit of a chance, and then I've given Ghost of Tsushima a little bit of a chance, those games have all been purchased within the same time window as when I bought Breath of the Wild. Because I bought that at launch.
Okay, but let me ask you this:
I bought it at its day of launch.
Do you not want to be good at those games and play them and interact and like essentially complete them because you know that they're good games?
I guess even when I bought them, I never knew the answer.
I'm not asking from like an element of do you want to do it versus the time and the energy that you have. I'm asking, do you want to do it just in general? Is that the reason why you bought the game?
I don't even remember the initial reason why I bought some of those games to begin with. I bought
because I'm an archivist also, like, kind of at heart, but I don't buy game. I wouldn't buy a game just for archival purposes.
Well, let's go back to Breath of the Wild. The reason I like the Zelda franchise is I buy it as an adventure game. So I definitely bought Sekiro and God of War and like Spider-Man and like that
as like an open world kind
adventure.
Of
no, not even open world. Screw with that. It was a story. I bought it for a story. I bought it to read a good book, to watch a good movie.
Okay.
I bought those games for a good narrative of those games. Yeah. So those are the reasons I bought those games. Because if you play Sekiro, that game is dark and twisted as fuck. His arm gets cut off. It's all about like revenge and like
you're a classic Ronin story.
Yeah, and
Ronin ninja.
So. That's my answer. My answer is I bought it for narrative. These are not as archival as I was originally buying for. It just became, some of these games are so good, I did think for a second, because you actually watched me play a little bit of Sekiro on a stream from a distance. It was one of the few you actually watched where like, I was like, okay, maybe I could turn these narrative games into a part of my channel.
Sekiro, I think Bloodborne, I watched you play Doom, I watched you play...
Shadow of the Colossus, I think.
That too.
That's still on my channel.
Funny, there's a video by somebody that I subscribed to a while ago that I'll show you later when we're not recorded. With he compares his 3 favorite games of all time. I believe his 3 favorite games were Outer Wilds, Shadow of the Colossus.
Morning, it's recording.
Shadow of the Colossus and Breath of the Wild, and he said they were all comparative in a lot of ways. So I thought that was interesting because Mike, I know you like Shadow of the Colossus. I know you love that game, so. I don't remember the video in whole, so I
seem to like a certain amount of.
I do distinctly remember because you were complaining about the wide open expanses with nothing to do, and you're just kind of traversing it, which I still to this moment I still agree with you. But then he literally showed Shadow of the Colossus footage, and I was like, all the Shadow of the Colossus footage is him running around in a giant field.
Okay, and I still hold my opinion that a lot of that shit is bullshit because you can get lost. Even in the new remake,
I was looking at it. I'm like, dude,
you can get
so
lost.
That is so much expanse. I'm like, that is so much open space.
Hey!
Stop it, please.
The cat is trying to tear down the screen. We don't need a cat ripping open a screen door in the middle of the night.
Hey, you're fat. Hey. Psst. I said no. Motherfucker. Psst.
You done there, Cat?
Yeah, he's strong.
I'm all about big, wide vistas. I like looking at pretty vistas. I like looking at pretty landscapes and shots.
It's Monday, right?
Yeah. Monday, Tuesday.
I'm sleeping you around.
Why?
Because when? Oh, yeah. Why? I mean, it's
The weekends come
nice
around and I
cool,
barely
right?
sleep.
It's nice and cool, right?
No. It was hot today.
There, right now?
No, like in general.
Yeah, I mean, right now.
Yeah, right now my room is still hot.
I'm not gonna
because
fall
it was
asleep in
hot
general.
today.
I'm gonna fall asleep right
I
now.
feel for you. Being my friend Andrew lives on the top floor, so he tells me, I'm like, so you have no relief ever? He's
No.
like, yeah, pretty much. Like,
Unless
it's
the day itself was not that warm, my room is always the hottest room in the house. Even because
It's
of
really bad, bro. It's
it
so
would be
bad.
I know,
fine
I
if
The
I
reason
had
that
a
she
screen.
moved into this room to begin with
Was because
originally
it was
was
hot.
because it was summer and she could not live up there.
I
She
couldn't
just-
sleep.
She could not
It was
do
making me sick.
She was like,
I
"Hey, I'm
couldn't-
just gonna stay with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I understand why."
Because
it
he
was
would come up
fucking
there and he
sweltering.
literally couldn't stay there for more than an hour.
It was like the Goron mines.
Before
I
he was-
needed,
he
I
was
needed
literally
heat
red.
resistant gear to fucking
Yeah.
live up there. It's fucking.
I
exhausting.
get
gotta
it.
figure out how to put
I'm
that
empathetic
screen
to this
together,
one. I'm
because once I
empathetic.
can do that and I can leave the window open at night, my room will cool
You
down.
can have some semblance of airflow.
The problem
because it's
is
still
that
not
I
much.
can't cool down my room after 6 o'clock.
Right, because all
then
the
there's
bugs come in. Yeah, because of the light.
And they're like, light! And I'm like, what if you didn't though?
Bugs.
Why?
Thought you were gonna go, yeah, see, like that. Came in here for damage.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
I stole your perfume. Also, for the first time, it didn't taste like perfume. It tasted like a cookie.
How dare you? Perfume. It is tasty. Tasty perfume.
Oh, that means
Okay,
that the
that's
other one got
Fanta.
moved, and he probably
That's
because
fine.
I
I
think
wanted this one.
he's smoking out of the nectar collector over there, so he brought one of
Was.
the yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What is that even from?
Porn.
Hentai.
That-
I mean, you guys say that, but like my coworkers at Chaparral do that, and like
No, but like actually, it's
Just
just a
general
meme because
porn.
of the sounds that they make in hentai.
yeah. And porn when they're faking it.
Oh yeah.
right, because you still have to record it
Oh
for the listening, but you're not actually doing it. You're a voice actor.
Yeah, essentially, and a body actor.
I watched this streamer on Valorant who's also a hentai voice actor,
What?
and she's fucking hilarious.
Good thing this is an hour in hentai discussion. Go.
And it's funny because her and this other streamer play together a lot, and he's got the chick is the hentai voice actor.
Yeah.
Bro, my wax.
It's not on me, I swear.
It literally, why? What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck? Now I'm sticky.
I know.
And like not.
You know, that's a hentai
hard
shot too. I
way.
have an old
yeah.
I have an old picture that's her. It says I'm all sticky and she's covered in. Well, you don't know. You don't
She's
know.
covered in-
Oh yeah. She's covered in mayo. Oh yeah.
To be fair and give the comic some context, it was color and it was more of a golden color than it was. So it was like a honey-ish
That was
color.
like halfway
It was.
down.
It's old cum.
But the quote bubble did say, "Oh, I'm all sticky."
Yeah.
Are you ready? Because this thing's
Yeah,
hot.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, you already had. You need this. There we go. I mean, I'm gonna say I hope that hentai is voice acted and all fake, because if they are really recording people in a room doing that to get the recording, That's
No.
a little wrong. That's
It's
a
a
little
little
dirty.
illegal.
That's
I want hentai with bloopers.
hentai with bloopers. It'd be like, oh yeah. Sorry.
Wait!
What are you even
Face.
doing? Are you
Trying to
force
make her-
eating
Yes.
her chocolate?
Trying to give her my little white Kit Kat.
At the same time that I'm trying to smoke.
My little white Kit Kat.
God.
Some timing. We were just talking about timing issues in fighting games. Timing, my friend. Timing.
Timing.
Timing is everything.
Where's the green?
Yeah, that one is a little hard.
Halloween is coming up.
Yeah, that's why I got them.
I was like, where did you get that?
Stater Brothers, but Halloween is coming
Kitch's
up.
Brew. Oh, Witch's Brew. Excuse me.
Yeah, Kitch's Brew, Witch's Brew.
What's up, Witch? Here, eat this with your face.
That's generally how you eat things, unless we're talking about specific South Park episodes.
Unless it's a suppository.
Yeah. We'll just pass all the good wagons. All the good horses and all the good Kingsmen could have put
That's the
Humpty
lines that
Dumpty
I
back
got, though.
together again.
That's pretty good.
Ladies. Alright. My gaming thoughts are
You need the recording to stop.
depleted. I mean, I don't need it to stop. I'm just saying I don't have anything more to add.
Boop, boop, boop. Depleted thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my thoughts are, I think Breath of the Wild is on the list of games that I want to continue as an adventure, as a story.
Back upstairs. I was playing comp.
Oh, I thought you were
Right.
talking about the heat and kind of stay back down here because of the heat.
It should be fine. It's just gaming.
It's not sweltering right now.
Oh, well then lucky
Gaming.
you.
Yeah, it's still too hot to
Gamers can accomplish anything.
basically. Hyper focus.
I'm trying to get that. Talk about that. Because, like, I think Breath of the Wild is on the list of games, but, like, if I acknowledge that even though, because I'm a Zelda fan, I just was like, the act of going out and getting a Zelda game at midnight at launch is just kind of, that in and of itself was almost instinctual for me. It was almost like I got it as a curiosity, knowing that it was going to be difficult for me to play and boot up to begin with.
Yeah.
And, like, in that regard, if I frame it correctly, then I just naturally... I knew the hurdle, the mountain was going to be a big climb. I knew the mountain, and pun intended for the stupid mountains you have to climb in Breath of the Wild.
Sometimes it's in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain. God damn, rain.
Goddamn
Breath of the
rain.
Wild climbing. Oh my god, so bad.
Goddamn rain. Sometimes
But
you
you
be
do-
hiking up to a tower and you're like, I'm almost there, and it starts raining and you have to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a real problem. You do bring up a good point, though, of like, I don't even know if Breath of the Wild would make my top 5 of games I want to play right now, because that would include games like Hades. That would include games... I beat Doom 2016, so now I need to beat Doom Eternal. I want to play fucking TMNT Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah.
Like, there are actual games that hold higher priority.
If it doesn't make it top 5, then fucking just save it for later. Save it for when
But
the sequel comes out.
it is a nice curiosity.
Maybe if it's top 10, then maybe it's top 10. 80s, I'm gonna kill you.
It is a wonderful curiosity. Alright, we do not support animal cruelty. He will kill him
Yeah, I'm not gonna actually
metaphorically.
kill the cat. I'm gonna kill him with water.
Yeah, you see this water bottle?
This squirt bottle. Okay, he's chilling.
He's getting
fine.
drenched with water bottle.
He's fine, alright. Good night, folks.